That's a Dicy Meatball.
Hello and welcome to Master Manual, a practical guide for DMs, GMs, and just wanna BMs, as well as other folks too. This is a podcast where we talk about and answer questions regarding Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, as well as other role-playing games, mostly from the DM perspective. I'm Spencer Crittenden, and I'm sitting here with my buddy.
Hey, I'm Cohen Edenfield, and I'm sitting here with my buddy.
Oh yeah, and I'm breathing. I'm loving it. I'm living. My blood is pumping. My heart is beating.
Your heart? Are you sure you have a heart?
The sky is falling.
You haven't given your heart to the darkness?
It's moving. I mean, if you give your heart to the darkness, do you still have it?
No. Well, here's how it goes. So, sometimes your heart is either you surrender to the darkness, or you are killed by a heartless, and they take your heart, and then you become a heartless.
Wait, so they literally take your heart?
Yeah, it's a metaphor, but
it's like your soul, though, like a soul heart.
Well, it's different from your spirit.
Okay, so there's a heart and a spirit.
Okay, so if your heart is taken, you become a heartless. You leave your body behind and you're a heartless. And if you have a really strong will, you sort of retain like your form, like your physical form and your memories. Mm-hmm. And if you have a super strong will, then you leave behind what's called a nobody. That's your body. That's like your body, and if your will is so strong, oh my gosh, then your nobody actually looks like you and retains your memories. Mm-hmm. So basically, becoming a heartless, if you're strong-willed enough, splits you into two things: a heartless and a nobody. Heartless have no hearts, and nobodies are just bodies. So that's not very consistent. But also, sometimes a nobody can grow back a heart and become a whole person if it is defeated.
But a different person than the spirit, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, kind of. It's sort of, but sometimes a boy is forcibly separated from his heart, and then his little clinging dying heart joins with a new heart that is formed from somewhere else. And so sometimes your nobody looks different because when you were a baby, your heart was sort of like an ICU for somebody else's split heart. And then you became joined in the heart, and then they have to hide in your heart. Anyway, Kingdom Hearts 3 came out this week, which is why we're recording on Saturday. Because It came out on Tuesday when we normally record, and I told Spencer in advance that I would not be available on that day.
Right. I also do things for fun, too.
What have you been doing?
Nothing.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Sorry.
But, yeah.
Anyway, Kingdom Hearts, man. Whips ass.
It's a video game.
I'm taking my time with it. No spoilers here.
As they say in Britain, other video games are also available.
Do they?
Yeah, and the BBC, you can mention product names, but then you have to say like other fast food brands are also available.
Really?
Yeah.
You can't be insinuating that that only one exists.
Like you would say like, "Hey Cohen, Lego my ego."
Yeah.
Other waffles are also available.
Like, do you have to do that for native advertising too, or like the nested product placement?
Well,
stuff?
I don't think the BBC
that?
is doing a lot of nested broad advertising.
That's probably why they're second rate.
Oh no, they're great.
We're like, Doctor Who gives a shit.
I used to listen to the British radio, BBC Radio 1. Oh man,
why?
Got me through some hard times because they listen to the music before we do.
Is it like listening to? Is it like how like when I was a teen, I found out that Al Franken had a streaming radio show, and I wanted to listen to it, not because it was any good or made me happy, but because I wanted to be a person who listened to Al Franken's streaming radio show. Oh no. Wow! I just remembered that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, when I was a teenager, all I knew him as was the guy who wrote the books about how Republicans were bad. Sorry, everyone. I forgot that Al Franken is canceled.
Right. I guess that makes the memory not exist anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard a rumor about Al Franken that was so vile that the person refused to share with me the rumor because it was so vile that they didn't want it to be something in my head because they regretted it having it in their head.
Did that really happen?
That really happened. And in recounting even just that detail that I am recounting, that person started to gag and vomit.
Wait, really?
They didn't actually throw up, but they were visibly sickened and had a small episode just from thinking about it, to the extent that they thought about it to tell me that I don't want to have it in my head.
Jesus Christ, that's evocative.
Presumably worse than, well, I mean, not worse than racism, I guess, but presumably a lot more viscerally affecting than I guess he wasn't racist. He was more of a toucher, huh? That was his problem.
Yeah, God,
he's a toucher, not a racist. I get all my bad people mixed up these days.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad people out there.
So that's interesting. But back to what I was saying, I wasn't.
Back to Dungeons and Dragons?
Nope. We were talking about
Kingdom Hearts.
Nope. It was after that.
Pretty sure it was Kingdom
Nope.
Hearts.
It was about Al Franken for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
You made it that for some reason.
I really wish I hadn't. I wish we could go back or perhaps
I'm trying
this.
to. Oh, no, we can't.
All right. Well, what have you been playing?
Nothing. I already said that.
What have you been doing in your evenings?
Nothing.
I've
been working.
Oh, right. Like a chump.
I have a lot of jobs that I work.
That's true. Well,
Harmon Quest is going great. Sometimes I post screenshots of Harmon Quest in our Master Manual Discord.
Yeah.
So if you want any spoilers, head on down.
All right, I will. I do want them.
Yeah, man. It's some fun stuff. Oh, man. I'm really excited this season. I can't wait. I really can't wait. Yeah.
All right, let's play.
Let's play Master Manual, the home game.
Let's jump right in with a question.
Starting with round 1, the question.
All right, we're going right in with the question this time. I want to do it. Okay. How to homebrew. This is from Conan. I'm making my own boss monster stats from scratch by combining assets and skills from both Goro and Motaro from the Mortal Kombat series.
Who's Motaro?
Motaro is the Minotaur guy with a silvery tail and horns.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I don't overpower my final battle. My question is, when using homebrew creations like this, how can I know I'm scaling the monster to an appropriate challenge rating? Of course, I don't want a final boss to be too easy, maybe one player character death, ... or two, but I don't want the fight to be impossible. Party is large and well-rounded, we have a little of everything, and everyone is at level 8. This isn't my first game to DM, but I often run into this problem, wondering what you guys would do. So first off, you're combining Goro and Motaro. That's a lot. You got yourself a four-armed man. That's what Goro is. And you got yourself a Minotaur. That's what
Motaro is.
Motaro is. So
you got some limbs.
Yeah, that you basically created a hell spider.
Yeah, it's got like 9 if you include the tail.
And I do, as you know.
You guys don't know, but Cohen, this guy includes the tail.
Yep, it's on my business card. That's all it just says. It just says that, and I have to write my personal phone number on it with a pen that I also carry. It's a calligraphy pen.
And it's weird because the card it says with the tail. Nope, I lost it.
It just says this guy includes the tail, and it has an arrow pointing up to the up left corner, so I have to stand a little off to the side of where I'm holding the card when I hand it.
The arrow really takes up most of the space of the card.
Oh yeah, it's in 6-point Calibri font, white on white. Yeah, so you've created quite a beast here. I assume it's got some grapple and some grab attacks. That tail's probably what makes 2. Right, this has got to have a 3 attack thing, right? Like it attacks once with each set of arms and once with the tail, probably.
Yeah, I mean you could do a stomp attack.
Yeah, it definitely does a trip with that tail.
Oh yeah,
because that's Motaro's always doing that trip.
But so how do you approach challenge ratings in general?
So there's a nice little formula in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I like to use that as it's really I've brought this up before. But there's basically a table that says like if you have like you do a formula where you like multiply, it gives you like a number to assign for each level of
the party
that's your party for each member, and you add those up. And when you add those up, you have like a number.
Your party number.
Yeah, that basically says, and then it also gives you some multipliers that you can add onto that for if you want to make an easy encounter, a difficult, a deadly, an impossible.
Right.
And that is the number, once you've multiplied that
that's the challenge rating?
Yeah, well, that like helps you find the challenge rating. Yeah.
Right, but then multiple monsters and their individual challenge ratings likewise multiply and create a larger challenge rating to match the encounter, right?
Yeah, so like an encounter's challenge rating is the product of the difference between what your party's like it can handle, and like every time you add, it's not, because when you add monsters, it's not just additive. You're multiplying the difficulty, like because like 2 monsters is not just. Like if two, like I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's say there are 2 monsters, each of them had like 500. If you add them together, you're now at like 1250.
Oh, so that's the experience points that it's based off of.
Yeah, it's kind of based on that, because you're having multiple monsters is always more difficult because they take multiple turns.
Right, they could get more critical hits.
Yeah, it's a bigger deal than just having
It's swingy. Yeah, but so that's how you do it for monsters that already exist. But so like then you would take monsters that are similar and then modify it. I don't know. I don't know exactly how you apply those numbers, but I think you just start strong and work your way down. I don't know. I just was reading a book. It said, an undead bullet and or bullet or whatever. That's like the land shark.
Oh yeah.
And a bullet is like a super strong creature. And then in undead, if you apply a typical like skeleton or zombie template to a bullet, it would be a pretty weak, slow, ponderous monster, but it wanted to make it a stronger thing, so it really reduced the hit points, and then it just like said now it's undead, it's immune to necrotic damage and weak to radiant damage, and so it's essentially a bullet template, but they just reduced the HP to take its toughness down a bit, make it a bit harder or easier to kill, and made it weaker. So, and I think that's what you want to do, is you take something strong and then you just bring it down. And then if you need to, just keep bringing it down. I think you could usually make things weaker retroactively if you have to.
Yeah. It's hard to make it stronger in the fight if it's getting overwhelmed.
Right, without justifying it somehow.
Unless it has, maybe it has an amulet that glows, or maybe it has some sort of secondary form.
It's a Super Saiyan.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like using the challenge rating, you can find a monster in the monster manual that has an appropriate CR for the type of encounter that you're trying to create, like, which sounds like difficult to deadly. And then you just look at its stats and make something with basically the same stats.
Yeah, look how many attacks it can do per thing.
Yeah, that's really important.
Right, because since it's going to be like a largely central or singular entity, then like usually that gets outpaced by having less turns, unless you can account by that by having it do multiple attacks per turn or have multiple actions or legendary actions or some such.
Yeah, or this is also why bosses tend to have some minions in there. Because otherwise it's very easy for even a very difficult boss to feel kind of like, I feel like it's easy for if you have one boss who is by themselves and a party of like 4 to 5, it's easy for even a difficult boss to feel less like a fight and more like a time bomb.
Right.
It's like, okay, we just need to make sure we're doing damage, and then we can also be healing like the entire time.
But also it's like, because of grapple checks and stuff, if you can even just like put one crowd control, like a prone, onto a singular enemy, like that can really just change the feel of the whole fight away from a boss fight into more or less a comical shenanigan, which isn't generally how you want a boss fight to go.
Or like magical darkness or something. This is the reason a lot of big bosses have stuff like blind sense and tremor sense, and also they have their legendary resistance, where they can just 3 times a day choose to succeed on a check that they would have failed otherwise. Like if it fails a check, it can choose to succeed instead, like 3 times a day. This is there so that for huge set piece bosses like this, or like the Tarrasque or a Leviathan or whatever, you can't just, you've blinded it, now you're fine.
Right. The whole system of legendary as a concept is, as far as I understand, new in 5th edition, and it was added for things like that. So you can make a guy be more powerful than just, he has one turn among 6 turns.
Yeah. It's layer actions also.
Right.
And the legendary actions where like on top of doing their regular attack, like, every 3 or 4 rounds they do some other thing. Like, they beat their wings and like half the party gets knocked prone or crazy things like that.
Yeah.
They're cool. It's cool shit.
If you do go too hard, I think sometimes depending on the boss, you can offer some sort of tactical situation where now it's like, I'm clearly winning. Do you want to parlay? And then, you do a deal and then maybe you betray him later and then go back to killing him. But like it gets you out of the fight, just as a stopgap to deliver yourself from destroying everything to the extent that you're worried that might happen.
You can also have a monster like think they're winning and like think they've just completely defeated you, and it's like maybe his chest opens up and like his ribs are a big spider that starts to try to consume one party member, and then that's like taking up his time and attention.
Right.
Like he's like, he has time to do that. Sort of like when Godzilla fought Destroya, and it was like, I'm gonna absorb him into my body, and Godzilla killed him with his laser breath.
Yeah, I think just on that, like having your enemy have something that they're trying to do rather than just be ready to fight when the gang encounters them might help that too, because then they'll just go on doing that, and then they don't necessarily have to focus on only murder. They could be fulfilling their goals if that helps you.
Yeah, we've fought a guy in the game that I play on who was trying to launch it was like he had a catapult at the top of his castle, and it was full of like plague-ridden bodies, and it was like a magical gravity catapult that was going to launch these extremely plague-ridden bodies into like a nearby village that we were trying to protect. And it was like we had to defeat him, but also the big the more pressing concern was to stop the catapult from going off. And
right,
we defeated by one Kate's character Whisper, who's a tabaxi rogue, like snuck around like the side of the castle. Well, because we were on the roof, she just went out a window from one floor down, crawled around the side, she's got the tabaxi claws climbing, and then set the catapult on fire while we kept the guy distracted.
That's legit.
It was legit. It was neat because a lot of times, like setting objectives that are not killing this guy is fun.
It adjusts the the value system of combat from just trying to deal as much damage as effectively as possible.
But you think about it, think about good stories. It's rarely just about this hero wants to kill the villain and that's it.
Yeah.
Like they're usually trying to stop like a doomsday device or
right. They usually barely care about the protagonist generally.
Yeah. And like the protagonist is not there just to beat up the villain.
Right. They're trying to do something.
Yeah.
They're at cross purposes.
Yeah.
Anyway, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think I think we did an incredibly good job.
Yeah, and I certainly don't have a lot more specificity. I think we can talk like scope and concept, but like I don't have any great tools or resources with which to avail myself. But yeah, do you want to do Loot Table or Brute Fable?
I think we should.
That's what we do.
Well, I think
we do. Segment
called that,
where we make up the stuff. Oh man. And someone sent us in a suggestion for new things as a quest hook, and someone sent vehicle/mount. And so keep sending them in. I think we need like maybe 1-2 good more. I think I could populate a D12 maybe.
Ooh, okay. Well, I just want to reward those people, but this week you're going to do quest hook and I'm going to do vehicle/mount. We're just going to do it. We're just going to use these first.
Wow.
So that we don't not get them for months.
And that's great that you picked.
Okay. Do you
What am I doing?
You're doing quest hook.
Okay.
Who's
that all right? Going first?
You're going first.
Okay.
All right. You have drawn the King of Pentacles reversed. Greed, indulgence, and sensuality. With financial success also comes more temptation. In what kind of ways do you find yourself indulging? There's a sense here of having an infinite desire for things for consumption while higher callings are being laid at the wayside.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what King of Pentacles is not reversed? It sounded like it's like a windfall getting fortune or something.
I think, yeah. But reversed, it suggests tyranny, rigidity, and coldness.
Tyranny, rigidity, and coldness. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, no, wait, sorry. It suggests greed, indulgence, and sensuality. My mistake. I was looking ahead.
You were looking at yours.
Yeah.
Greed, indulgence, and sensuality.
Mm-hmm. Infinite desire.
Okay. So here's the quest hook.
Mm-hmm.
You come across it's an area that's clearly under excavation and also clearly abandoned and also clearly fortified, as if territory was claimed, set up and fortified, and then excavated somewhat. Outside the abandoned excavation is tied a donkey as you come upon it, you know. It wouldn't be super easy to get past the fortification, but you can see easily into it. And it's like, oh, what? Was someone digging here or something? It was some weird construction equipment, you know, like a construction crew was here and set up camp for at least a couple days.
Yeah.
And right when you're kind of investigating it a little bit, like a fat dwarf, or like say a fat gnome actually comes, or no, a fat halfling. He comes waltzing back, and he unhitches his donkey, or no, he comes back to unhitch his donkey, and his donkey like starts to start at his presence, you know?
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, well, there's this gnome coming through, and the gnome's like, wait, what the fuck? What, you guys digging this place? I put this wall so no one would. What the fuck are you guys doing? And then he's like freaking out, and he's like, they dug it up. And so it's like he's cagey and nervous, and he puts together that you didn't dig it up, but he's like, someone dug up my thing, and he doesn't want to tell you what it is, but he's freaking out and he wants to find it. Quest hook.
I like it. It's called Fuck You Got Mine.
Fuck you got mine.
Yeah.
The fuck you got mine. Thanks, reversed King of Pentacles.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I like it. I can dig it.
Hopefully that was sensuous enough.
What do you think it was that they took?
I don't know. That's the question I had.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm only going to follow this gnome around and then murder him like the second I find out what actually he was looking for, you know, and then I'll just follow that lead.
Yeah, I think it was a gnome. I think it was a statue of Glar Glitter Gold.
Yeah,
that gnome guy.
Yeah, Gar Glitter Gold.
And you think it's a statue of Glar Glitter Gold, but it's actually a statue of that kobold god, you know, the one who got locked up by old Glar Glitter Gold.
I don't, tricked. But I'm aware.
It's why kobolds hate gnomes, because the gnome god tricked the kobold god into a labyrinth and then locked him into it. And it's why kobolds can't cast divine spells, because their god is locked is basically got pranked.
Damn.
Yeah.
You got trolled, son.
Yeah. And Glar Glitter Gold was in trouble. Like, the reason this Knoll god was coming after him, not Knoll, Kobold god was coming after him. It was because Glar stole something from Tiamat from her hoard. It's all very, you know,
I wonder
tricksy.
If Garl Glitter Gold was ever someone's D&D character.
Maybe.
A lot of the deities were.
Old Tensor.
Old Tensor.
And his floating disc.
And Bigby.
Oh, yeah. Bigby was a tough motherfucker.
It's crazy to imagine that there was this guy, and he's like, what if about this spell with my hand? And it's like, I'm a wizard, so my hand is doing all these things. And it's like, yeah, let's put that in the book in all these editions. Okay.
Yeah, and then like 30 years later, and people are, you know, screaming at each other on Reddit over whether Bigby's hand is OP because it has like a lot of hit points.
Yeah, pretty strange. All right, your turn.
All right, okay.
You got vehicle.
Mount or vehicle. And my thing is the Emperor reversed. Oh, we both had like kings reversed. It suggests tyranny, rigidity, and coldness. A good emperor not only understands when to take control, but also when the control is too much. In this case, the authority that he exudes has turned to domination. His firm grasp was his kingdom turned into suffering. What parts of yourself could you aim to release? Let's see. Okay. Tyranny, rigidity, and coldness. For a mount or a vehicle. Okay, it's a... It is an ice construct. It is, and it's like it's freezing. It's moving you forward by freezing, but it's like a thing you hold, like an orb, and when you hold it, it kind of like forms an ice platform beneath you and moves you forward,
like an Iceman.
Yeah, kind of like it lets you basically be Iceman.
It's an Iceman carpenter or whatever the fuck.
And it moves you forward pretty briskly.
Yeah.
I would say like, I don't know, 60 feet per round, like double walking speed, double run speed, basically.
Yeah.
But the problem is it leaves, like the ice that it leaves doesn't melt for 2 days. So it is very easy to pursue you. And if you are creating a mess with this thing, it's not hard for people to find the person who's doing it.
Right. Would it take concentration or balance to be able to write it, or would you just be able to write it pretty easily?
It would definitely take concentration.
Not balance, though. That's like part of the magic.
Yeah, part of the magic is balance. I dig it. I'd say it makes a thing like, I don't know, for enough for like 5 people if you're focusing. Maybe the more that the more people who are riding on it, the slower it is. So if it's by yourself, you can go like 120 feet per round.
Damn. Got one last. Oh, go.
I was gonna say I just had a good idea. You can only go 120 feet per round. You can't. It's like an ice puzzle in a video game. Like you keep sliding.
Until
like you can't go like 40 feet and then stop.
I like that. I got one last question.
What you got?
Can you make a loop-de-loop?
Yes.
Okay.
But you fall when you're at the loop.
Okay. That tracks.
Yeah. But if you land on like where the loop closes, then you're good. But you can't Sonic it.
Well, if you fall, does it make a new ice platform under you at some point that you land into, or do you just fall on the ground?
Let's go to YouTube and Google
Sonic
Freeze Easy Fails.
Freeze Easy Fails.
Yeah. Is the Freeze Easy? Is that a good one?
I don't know. What's it called though?
It's called the Frigid Rigid.
Well, what's rigid in this context?
No, I guess nothing. It is called the I See You Later.
I See You Later. Because it's a riff off of the intensive care unit.
Yeah. It's called the
It's not just like the snow globe.
Oh, you know what? It's the snow globe.
I mean, that's no. Bad for its own reasons.
Yeah, it should be a different thing. It's called the ice rink.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fine and it's good. Success.
I think that's a cool thing. I mean, I don't know. It reminds me of apparently hags in this edition have all sorts of things that they write on.
Oh yeah,
like brooms or stuff, or like a mortar and pestle or something. I don't know.
They're in that old. They're in that one game. The one with Vlad
Strad.
They're in that old windmill. Watch out.
Oh yeah, watch out for the windmill hags of Strad.
That's apparently like a famous aspect of that encounter because it's like of that campaign, because it's like you can go up to that windmill pretty much at any time, and there's just some hags there, and they are really strong.
Oh yeah,
but they don't. It's a great detail is that they don't just like attack you straight up. Like they're just there.
They're ready for business.
Yeah, because they are. They're like trying to sell you bread. And hags a big thing about hags is they try to make deals in this game. In 5th edition, like they try to like trick you into bad deals. There's a lot of on the D&D Reddit I've read about hags a fair bit.
Yeah, they make an interesting, I don't know. I keep reading the Undermountain, and oh man, it has all sorts of interesting ways to interact with content. It's like, oh, here's this guy, and he says he's an alchemist, and then here's this thing, and it's actually an Oni in disguise, and it's eating a thing, and like, I don't know, just like it's just monsters, but it's like, well, it's not just monsters, and it's like, man, I fucking love it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that the least interesting thing about D&D is combat. I like D&D combat. But I like it to be on the table that things don't have to be a fight.
Right. Because it's tedious. Anyway, do you want to do a break?
Yeah, I think we need to keep the lights on.
Do you want to keep the lights on?
Yeah.
These lights are actually holding strong today.
Yeah, it's because of all the rain.
Hey, Cohen.
Hey, Spencer.
How often does this happen to you?
All the time.
Great. That's why we're advertising. No, I know. We talk about our problems so much that we just know what each other's experiencing. But at the same time, let's just elucidate that what is a common practice for both of us is we're constantly shoveling up. We're trying to clear all matter of rocks, rubbles, gravel, and dirt. And it's easy enough to pile it up. But then what do you do with it? Take it into a barrel, in a wheelbarrow and like stuff it into a hole, like flush it down the toilet.
I tell you, man, I come in from a long day of trying to clear my little field so that I can plant my crops, and I clear it of stones and stumps and detritus so that, sort of that elemental strata that is heaved up by the toil loving earth that likes to water itself with my sweat by producing pain totems that I must carry off. But then whence hither shall they go?
Whence hither shall they go?
Once I've piled them up, what do I do with them?
Oh man, that's why I have that same problem until now, thanks to the Doobie Brothers Dusty Brush.
The Dusty Brush from the Doobie Brothers? The DBDB?
The DBDB, the Doobie Brothers Dusty Brush, is perfect for all your dirt clearing needs. Pile up all your dirt and then brush it simply and gently with the DBDB and it just disappears. And here's the best part. If you ever find yourself wanting that dirt back and feeling like a fool for disappearing that dirt, you just hold it backwards and brush it on a clean surface and it brushes that dirt right back.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. This is a magical product.
Oh, yeah. It's magic, and we pass the magical savings directly onto you.
This reminds one time I was somewhere with my dad, and there was a big pile of dirt. And he was like, "My dad is sort of a not throwing things away guy." He's like, we might want to load up the trailer because he had the trailer that he would fix to the back of his truck when he would want to gather things and like come back for some of that. I was like, "Come back for some of that." He was like, "Oh, well, the dirt." I was like, you want like you don't want that dirt. I can get you dirt. Like, this is not. And he sort of realized.
How old were you?
I was like 16 or 17. He kind of realized what he was saying, which was that like he didn't like. It's like because it wasn't like soil. It was just like somebody had like dug a foundation, and he was like, "Oh, dirt. Can use some of that." It's like
I like to imagine like a 16-year-old Cohen, like you clap your dad's shoulder with your hand and you're like, "Buddy, you need dirt. I got all the dirt you need."
That is sort of exactly how I played it. I was like, "Man, I get you the good stuff."
Oh yeah, we'll skip the middleman.
Well, like I wish I had had the Doobie Brothers dust brush on that very day.
Oh yeah, because everyone wants to get rid of dirt, but what about when you want it back?
Yeah, that's that torment was the one that my father lived in. And I could have freed him 14 years ago.
Oh, yeah. You could have freed him. He wouldn't have even had to use his trailer.
No.
It even works on boulders. Not like huge boulders, but pretty large ones.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a product.
It's great for your standard brush and dirt clearing needs.
And and even also small boulders, but not huge ones.
If you want one, send us an email and we'll send you an order form to print. Put your blood into it.
So like a boulder, no, think about it. So I was like, what does it make? What's the difference between a big boulder and like geology? But it's like, it's got to be disconnected, right? Basically, it's the point where it's free. It's bigger than a rock.
Right. To me, if it's bigger than your head, it's a boulder. I mean, I bet that's a bit small in terms of boulder, but that's like about where I draw the line is like once it like could like pulverize your head into nothing if it was dropped. Like I feel like that's about boulder size, and then I think it becomes a singular rock once it breaks out of the ground, right? Yeah,
for me, it's a boulder is something that one person couldn't be expected to move,
right?
Like, and something that might on its own tumble down a mountainside.
Right. One person can't be expected to move it until now, thanks to the Doobie Brothers Dusty Brush.
Yeah. We're here for your dirty needs.
Your dirty needs. Use the promo code dirty needs.
The last two E's need to be capitalized.
And needs has an K, silent K.
Yeah.
And we're back.
I sure did enjoy that suite of products.
I did. It was sweet.
You know, I think, though, we need to get back into the goddamn questions.
It's time to answer question number 2.
This would be 3. This would be 2. Okay.
I can't remember.
Okay. This one is called, okay, then I do a history check, too. Hey, guys, loving the pod. This is from Jack. How do you feel about players actively requesting or just assuming they can do certain passive roles such as insight checks, perception checks, or knowledge checks like history/arcana? And there's sort of a second part of this question. I've noticed that sometimes players will do this thing where they just go on a roll fiesta, each player rolling the same check one after another until somebody hits. I wonder if the readiness of the mechanic inhibits creative problem solving sometimes. You ever thought about these types of rolls? Do you let your players request them? I do not. I don't. You don't make those requests. You tell me what you're trying to do. I tell you the kind of roll that you're trying to make.
Yeah. So have you ever used a lot of pre-prepared content? I can't remember.
No, I'm sort of like just diving into that for the first time.
Right. So like this is, I think, something that comes with modules a bit more because a lot of times they have things that are like, oh, a person looking at that mural can use a 15 history check. But to me, I always find that super awkward because it's like, what do they expect? Do they expect the player to ask to do a history roll once they look at that mural? Is it expected that the DM rolls when they look at the mural to see how connected to their history they are?
I think they ask, at least in my experience, they check out the mural and then I tell them to make a history check.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's kind of like I think of these as almost like kind of like quick time events, like in the sense of like you're trying to interface with something and then the game gives you some other thing to do to represent how well you interfaced with this. So it's like oh, I want to try to pick this lock. It's like, all right, what is that? Is lock picking?
It's like a thievery or something.
Sleight of hand?
Yeah, something.
Anyway.
We'll look it up.
Oh yeah, use thieves' tools. Anyway, is dungeoneering still a thing? No. Okay.
Not as such.
History check is a great one because I feel like it's one that people try to call a lot. History check.
Yeah. Well, like for the mural, how would you do that? Would they say they have to say, I look at the mural and then you say do a history check or what?
Yeah. Basically, it'd be and then that would be the equivalent of them remembering or knowing what this is.
And so that would be like if they say, I look through the room and then you do a perception check to see if they find any traps in the room. It's a similar situation.
Yeah, I'd say that. And I think passive perception exists for this reason. Where if they're never saying, the reason we have passive perception is like so that players aren't calling perception checks or those kind of things. Like because that's not the mechanic. I think it's sort of the equivalent of like demanding a random encounter. It's that kind of thing. It's like, or my player levels up. It's like. These checks should be set by the DM. Not it should be an attempt. It's an attempt. It's the game's mechanic of putting the dice and the skills onto a thing that the player is trying to do in a role playing sense. Like your character Glar Glittergold should not ever say, I make a history check. He's trying to remember something. You're looking like
I think that the problem is that the way the modules I've seen meet out this information, it's not clear when you're supposed to present it, and it's almost like it expects you to wait for the player to ask for it explicitly. And I think that what you're saying is like about the reality that's not how it ends up happening most of the time, which is I think the confusion that this person's expressing, right? Because it's just not clear, and that leads to all sorts of problems. I think that what he talked about is all those roles is like, it's like when you say roll a perception and someone fails, and so everyone's like, oh, well, I guess there's like someone invisible in the room, so I better look real hard. It's that same kind of thing, but I think it just comes because it's pretty clear when perception is called for.
Yeah.
But it's a lot less clear when other things are called for. And then again, in these books and stuff, it lays it out in a confusing way because it's like, oh, a character with a knowledge 17 nature check can determine that this slime is coming from an Aboleth and it's actually actively harmful to the rest of the fauna in the area. And you can see that these fish are poison. But it's like, who is going to be all like, oh, look at all this slime. I wonder how nature is affected. Let me see my nature knowledge and see what that turns up.
Well, no, they'd say, I want to take a closer look at the slime, and you'd say, okay, make a nature check.
Right. That's not how the book says it clearly. So I think that can be the right answer, but it's like, I think that it's not always obvious for people. Okay. So I think that that's maybe the advice is that you want to use that as your way to determine how you want to resolve their interaction with that object.
Yes, exactly. And if somebody else, I feel like if somebody, the second part of this question is, I think, a problem that comes up, which is one person will try to do a thing and they fail, and then somebody else is like, and then it just sort of comes to this daisy chain of like, everybody makes an Arcana check. And it's like that kind of, I think that can undercut things a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's easier with. I think that if you have a bunch of players who are, the ideal is sort of like the game that I'm playing in is that everybody sort of understands that narratively that is not very fun. If like, because we have two magic users in the group. We got me and there's a cleric. Like I'm a sorcerer and we got a cleric, so neither of us is a wizard. So we'll make Arcana checks. So sometimes we'll like both take a look at something, but it would be weird if then the rogue tried to do it. Like one of the rogues is like, well, I'll take a look also, and it's.
I think that's part of what happens when you have this misset expectation on how these roles work. But like I also think that generally you should just be generous with information to the extent that you can. So it's like, if there's something that might be relevant, just give it to them. Don't make them roll for it. Like a lot of times this information is layered. So it's like there's 3 pieces or like 3 levels to the amount of information you can get, or something that's obvious and something that's not obvious, and then something that really you'd have to look hard for. And it's like you could give 1 or 2 of those levels away and it won't even do anything. Like they might not even utilize that information. So it's like I think you could go harder with just giving people information, because a lot of the things that's how they're going to access that stuff. Like you might be all like, oh yeah, it looks kind of like a control gem or whatever, because no one's ever going to be like, oh, slides, they all have control gems and this is a gem. Are the 2 related? Like no one's ever going to make that connection, and so unless like you're suggesting you roll a spellcrafting or a planes check and be like, oh yeah, this looks like it's from the plane of chaos or something, to give that to them without them calling for it. I think it does present something where it's like, oh, is this a challenge? Let's all try and beat this. And then it's a distraction.
Yeah, it becomes like, oh, we're all going to use our attempt token to try to get the gachapon of information to fall out of to get the good drop.
Right. And then in third edition, there was taking 10 and taking 20, which in a situation like that, it's I pick the lock, you fail. I spend 20 minutes taking a 20 on picking the lock or whatever. And it's like that. It's the same kind of thing, but that happens because it's like you're just not letting them succeed when you could just let them succeed.
I think here's an example of a thing that I don't think is actually in the suggested uses, but they came out. So I have counterspell, and I try to, or like oftentimes like Richard DM doesn't tell us what the characters are doing when they cast a spell. Like he's like he casts fireball, it's like, or she casts this. Like he tells us the effect. It's like, they look strong, they gather themselves, like, but he's not going to tell us like,
they wave their arms in a magical manner.
Yeah, exactly. But he's not going to say, oh, these characters all recover, your enemies all recover 17 hit points.
Right.
Like, and that kind of thing. But I can make Arcana checks. Like, I can say like, do I know what the spell their cast is? And then I can make an Arcana check. And if I succeed, then I might know what the spell is. And if I succeed really well, I might know the spell and its effects. If it's a spell that I have, then I have like advantage on these. or like if it's an easier check, that kind of thing, or if I've seen it before. So he sets these DCs like on the fly pretty quick.
Yeah, but are you manually calling for those, or is he giving it to you every time he does a spell?
If I ask, do I know what the spell is? But I also don't do it every time someone casts a spell.
Right.
Because I don't want to. I think a lot of this can come for like setting player expectations.
Right.
If you make it, I think you can communicate that like, okay, we're not going to all try to do every check. We're not going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that situation you just talked about is exactly like kind of the ambiguity, because it's like, because if you think about it like in an immersion sense, it's like if you are a wizard and you did see someone casting a spell, you would be able to either determine or not determine whether it was something you were familiar or unfamiliar with. And then based on that level of familiarity, be able to go, oh, maybe that's an abjuration. I've never seen that before. That looks like it might've been some dwarven shit, you know? And like, but like, so it's like you would have some insight every time, but then it also seems like cheap to just give a free roll. Like, so like, I mean, what, I guess what I'm saying is like, I wonder is there a rule to set? Like, I wonder if it's just find your style and then stay consistent so people know what they're, like you just said, setting expectations so people aren't constantly guessing at what they're having to do. But that, I mean, it is an interesting problem, I guess.
I think the big thing is like, I think that you can kind of set your own
right.
I think you can maybe adjust a DC or whatever. So it's like, if your wizard examines the mystic, I feel like arcanas, let's stick with that.
Right.
If your wizard examines the mystical orb and really just beefs it on his arcana check and is not able to figure out what it is, and then somebody else wants to take a try, you can kind of reason out that, okay, what is, if they roll let's say they roll a 20, maybe you got to kind of improv a good reason why they, know what this thing is.
Right.
But the thing is, it's like, you can also, it's like, oh, you know what? You don't know what it is either.
Right.
As it turns out, because maybe it's like, oh, a wizard is when the wizard is making his arcana check, it's trying to remember or understand a thing but it's like for him, he's trying to make a connection that is drawing on like his existing in character arcana knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's like that, but if you have like a character who has no magical experience trying to do that, they have never studied magic, so making that connection would become like next to impossible for them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think to crystallize, I mean, what it seems to be, I don't know, focusing in on to me is that as the DM, it's incumbent on you to really take it to them, to bring it to them, to go the extra mile. You give them all the roles that are relevant for the interaction. You determine whether or not roles will be made at any given time, and never make it a question whether or not someone can or can't, because you're always just there with the information or not. And to the extent that there is information you feel like might be helpful, you are just going to want to give it to them rather than make people come to it. I think that's maybe a solution. And if that's not the approach, then you set that expectations to where you want them to meet you,
Yeah. You set the terms that you're the one calling the roles for sure. Mm-hmm. So if the wizard tries to do a thing, they make the roll, and somebody else is like, I want to take a look at it too. And it's like, you could just tell them, oh yeah, you just watched him and you have no insights on this.
Yeah. And I just think that model that you're describing can also work with people doing random rolls. Like, I'm out in the field. Well, I'll do a nature check to see if I learn anything about the weather or anything, and it's like, oh yeah, look, there's a tree. It's like one of these shield dwarf trees that makes these big acorns, and it's like, it's nothing, but it's like, I think that approach can also work with what you're saying and still not create ambiguity and confusion. Yeah.
I find that if in the first couple of sessions you take kind of a hard line about who's calling roles, and just like basically just like giving, like it's pedantic at first, but it ends up making it also just makes the immersion so much easier, as if you're taking care of letting people know when they got to do rolls. It's so much easier to role play if you're not feeling like you are limited to the 18 different checks you can call for. If you're like, I want to try to do this, and then you tell them how to try, it's so much easier, especially for new players.
Right.
Like,
to me, it's just the problem that becomes presented is that mechanics offer a way to interact with the content, and then putting the role in place is a barrier between that exact interaction that you're wanting to cultivate. So that's one of the problems anyway, hopefully we answered the question.
I think we definitely explored the space.
Do you want to alternate a monster's lore?
I think it might be that time.
It may be that time.
All right, we got a lot of rain happening. What's something rainy?
Rainy, Sahuagin, Kuotoa. What are the ones that are merfolk but not the bad merfolk?
I think we did merfolk pretty good.
I think we decided not to do it or something. We did airfolk out of the. Marrow. That was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Chol, a scum.
What's a scum?
Scum is is a reptile man. Usually it's like a hybrid creature, I think. I don't know if it's in 5th edition, but hybrid creature is the result of Aboleth infection and such. Like if you are a human that were under the thrall of an Aboleth, you might eventually turn into a scum.
Okay. I like this.
Mm-hmm.
What about... Okay. What about
Are we doing scum?
Okay, we're doing. I think we're.
I could keep listing monsters.
Okay, I had an idea. I don't know if there's an existing monster.
Oh, okay, yeah. Just go for it.
Okay, my idea is a town where it is always raining. And over children look normal, but all the the older people, the older someone is who's like a native of this town, like maybe your party enters this town. And they start to notice is the older people look very bloated and kind of
right.
almost the oldest people look like almost like a corpse that had been fished up from the river,
right?
Practically disintegrating.
Sure.
And then it's it's an unnatural storm. Maybe there's some I don't know a range in a rain a water djinn. What's the water djinn called?
Couldn't tell you.
It's one of them.
The water djinn.
The Tao is Earth, fire is Ifrit.
We'll look it up.
Anyway, I think it might just be Genie.
It's
anyway,
something weird.
Yeah, it's something weird. Anyway, some kind of water monster thing is the god of this town, or it has basically carved out this town as its territory, and the people are slowly transformed into its thralls over the course of their entire life, just very gradually. By being rained on, and then when they so
finally, this is an alternate Aboleth.
I guess is this sort of what an Aboleth does?
An Aboleth infects a swamp or a body of water and turns it brackish and slimy, and that zone of influence it extends outward and outward until it infects and kind of thralls all the things in the environment and makes it so they can only breathe slime. And so it's like that. But this one, instead of sliming, it would summon rain. And then
it's infected a storm that has become this permanent storm.
Like a storm Aboleth.
Yeah, and it is in this storm that never leaves this town. It's always at least drizzling.
That would be cool if it's actually in the clouds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
it's up in the clouds, and it's it's just gradually raining, and but because it's not it's not people aren't swimming in it. So it doesn't happen as fast as an Aboleth, but it's very gradually over the course of your entire life, this rain transforms you into this thing to the point where it's when people, and it's when people die, they're buried, but then the bodies always rise. Cause then you're in your coffin and then you're finally truly immersed in the water. And you rise and you're this other thing, but it's a bad thing. Life expectancy, I'd say, would be significantly shortened. People are probably not living past early 40s,
right?
Because it's raining all the time,
and they're kind of pre-rotting also.
Yeah, exactly. You're rotting, and it's there's something that's one of those it style something's wrong in this town. People don't like to talk about it. Maybe there's some cleric of some new has moved here to set up a temple, and has like just like something is going on in this town. I've been here 2 months and it has not stopped raining the entire time.
And not even that, but no one even mentions it.
Yeah, they're just like, oh well, if you don't like the weather, you can move. Like it's like Seattle. It's like everybody acts like it's fine that it's always raining, but it's weird.
Right.
It's bad actually.
Yeah, I mean, it should be Seattle. It would be better if it was set in Seattle.
Okay, it's set in Seattle.
Set in Seattle.
Okay, so it's like it could be like because it could be like a whole city. It could be like a big city that this has happened to, and then it's like this is weird, right? Like this is not normal that it has not stopped raining in 2 months, and then he's like, especially I think this works in a medieval setting where it's like because if this happened, really, it would make the news in a modern setting, but it's like people are like, oh yeah, well if you don't. People get so used to bad weather. It's like, oh, the weather. But no use talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, there probably are places that always rain because of weird magic.
Yeah, but how would you know?
And like you couldn't do anything about it. You would just either live there or leave, Yeah.
And of course, the thing your players would do is like maybe spend some time in this town, like helping this cleric of
Butts.
I'm going to say it's a cleric of Kalimvor, who like, because that'd be a couple of good things. The in fact, it always raining is out of balance. That's not how things should be.
Right.
And also the dead are rising, which Kalimvor doesn't like.
Yeah. So to me, there's one outstanding question, which is like, what obviously magic, but what keeps the rain going? Like, it feels like that's something that would eventually like stop somehow unless it was constantly being rejuvenated or powered somehow by whatever is partially part of the plot of the entity, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, the bad version would be it's the youth, it drains the youth of the tribe to power, but whatever. But like, is there something that like as a side effect or like that's like, I don't know, like Aboleth is like slime, like I don't know, like maybe the slime builds up or but the idea being just like there's something that's like why the rain keeps happening that's like a secret Soylent Green style reveal or I don't know.
Okay, so maybe it's not people don't rise from the dead.
Okay.
Maybe like
when they could still.
But okay, they do, but it's like their bodies kind of like float like you go to like find an open grave and it's like the body has just evaporated. Like that's the last thing that happens is it just goes up into this cloud.
Okay, so what if that's why you bloat, right? So bloating is like what happens as a body disintegrates underwater. It gets like putrefied to gases and stuff. So like as you say, as you start to get older and decay and fall into it more, you get more bloated and you become a bloat corpse that floats up, and then you walk as a risen zombie, but you keep like getting more, like you get more gassy and bubbly, and it starts like you start foaming and you like kind of just slowly discorporate into like putrid, disgusting, slimy suds and foam that kind of just release gas, and then that kind of becomes like a little foam cluster that just floats back up into the air.
That would explain why the cleric was like the monk was or priest or whatever was there, because it's like, oh, the dead have been rising.
Yeah,
and then he like you make the connection, and you investigate, your players investigate. They go to the graveyard and they find, maybe they dig one up to like, they can dig one up and like see that it's like, oh shit, this grave is empty. They find the guy, he's like started to rot.
Yeah. And then I don't know, then it's just like, oh yeah, we thought it was all these corpses were wet because it's been raining constantly, but it turns out they're like liquefying themselves. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. I think we did it, huh?
Yeah, I like this. This is a lot.
All right. Storm Aboleth or some such. Do we want to spend some time? Cumulonimbus, cirrus, stratus. What are clouds? Clouds.
It's called a cumuleth.
Cumuleth. Cumuleth. Okay. That'll do it. You can use it in your campaign.
You're welcome.
Master Manual Pod.
Kicks ass.
Yeah, at gmail.com. Master Manual Pod on the socials, Discord, Harmon Quest, Kingdom Hearts 3, Burger King.
Skull Mandible, the Sixler.
At fuck Jerry.
No.
Hashtag fuck Jerry.
They don't need our help.
All right. You know what that means.
Firefest would be a really fun one-shot campaign setting.
Mastery is manual.
Oh, looks like we booked it again.
That's a Dicy Meatball.
Oh, very good.